Welcome back to the channel. Make sure you stay till the end because I'm going to show you guys how to destroy a low stakes poker game. For the year 2025, I'm trying to make $25 an hour while playing both 1-2 and 1-3. We're currently in the midst of a rough stretch, so let's see where we stand. For 1-2, I played a total of 63 hours and 40 minutes and profited $1,926 for an hourly win rate of $30.25. I'm pretty happy with these numbers because I profited in over 70% of my sessions and managed to win over 15 big blinds an hour, which is hard to do regardless of how small the sample size is. As for 1-3, I've now played a total of 47 hours and 50 minutes and profited just $270 total for an hourly win rate of $5.64. We haven't been playing our best at this stake, but also not running very good, so in the end, I'm just happy we're in the positive. Combining these stats, we played a total of 111 hours and 30 minutes of live poker and profited $2,196 for an hourly win rate of $19.70. Not bad, but would love to finish the end of June above our $25 an hour goal because that'll be the halfway point of 2025. So let's see if we can make that happen by heading out to the nicest card room in Northern California, which is none other than Stone's Gambling Hall. We buy into the 1-3 match stack game for $500, which is the max to start, and in our first interesting hand of the day, there's 3 limps to me, and I'm in the hijack and look down at my favorite hand in poker, which is none other than Jack 10 suited. Raise the price of poker to $25, and action folds to the big blind who doesn't think 25 is enough, and now raises to 75. Everyone else gets out of the way, and action's back on me. Since we're somewhat deep and I have position, we're just never folding here, so I put in the extra $50 in the pot sitting at 160 even. Off to a flop heads up of King 9-7 with 1 diamond, giving us a double gut shot with a backdoor flush draw. This board crushes our opponent's 3-betting range, but we have the perfect hand and board to crack a monster with. He continues the aggression with the same size bet of $75. There's no point in ever raising, so I put in the call, increasing this pot to $310. Off to a turn and it rolls out the 4 of diamonds, giving us a lot more equity with the flush draw. If our opponent had queens, jacks, or 10s, I would expect him to slow down and check, but now he keeps firing for a bet of 125. His range is pretty simple to me now. Ace king, pocket kings, or pocket aces, and not much else. I'm super glad he didn't put us all in, or else we would have had to do some math to see if it would be a profitable call, but for this price, it's an easy decision. I put in the chips, increasing this pot to 560. We're hoping for any diamond, queen, or 8. And that's exactly what we get when the river rolls out the queen of hearts, giving us the nuts. He wastes no time before going all in, and I couldn't call faster. I fast roll my hand, which is what I always do when I have the nuts, and he shows ace king offsuit, which is one of the few hands we expected. Always feel good when you could start the day off with a huge win, so now I just got one thing to say.
Tell them to bring me my money.
Yeah! A few orbits go by before we get involved in another interesting one. There's 2 limps from early position in the cutoff, and I'm on the button and look down at 7-5 of spades. I hate over limping when I have the best position possible, so I make it $20 to go and both players end up putting in the chips. Off to a flop 3 ways of king queen 4 with 2 spades, giving us a flush draw. Player in early position now leads out for a super small bet of $20 and the cutoff gets out of the way. Players who donk small into the pre-flop aggressor on a board that should crush my range are almost always weak. I have all the good hands in my range like aces, ace king, king queen, pocket kings, and pocket queens, while the strongest hand in his pre-flop limp calling range on this board would be a hand like king jack and the occasional pocket 4s, to which I think he'd go for the check raise with. So basically I'm putting him on a weak king, but most likely a queen that wants to find out where they're at. So since I have the range advantage and equity with the flush draw, I decide to rep a monster and raise to $90. Not expecting him to fold any of those hands just yet, but want to give our opponent the idea that we're super strong. He eventually calls, increasing this pot to $240. We're off to a turn, which in my opinion is the worst card in the deck in the queen of hearts, because all those queen X hands he had now make trips, and my fold equity has gone out the window. He checks in flow, and now I see 0 point in betting, so I check it back to see a free river and hopefully hit a spade. So I check, and the river rolls out a 4 of diamonds. He leads out for $50. If I was to raise now, my line would make 0 cents, so I decided to fold and move on. Looking to get that money back when there's one limp, and I look down at King Queen offsuit in early position and raise it up to $20. I get called by middle position in the small blind, so with $60 in the pot, the flop comes out King 6-3 with 2 spades, giving us top pair second best kicker. Checks to me, and I like a standard half pot size bet in this spot to keep all the draws and weaker pairs in there. So I throw out a C bet of $30, and surprisingly both players decide to put in the chips. Whenever I'm in a multi-way spot post-flop, I try to think of all the possible hands I need to be on the lookout for. Basically any worse king like King Jack and King 10, all the spade draws, and 5-4 for the straight draw. So as long as we could avoid a turn card that improves those holdings, I'll keep firing out for value. With 150 in the middle, the turn is favorable and the 9 of diamonds, now putting 2 flush draws on the board. Checks to me again, and since all those holdings I mentioned earlier don't have me beat, it's time to keep firing out for value. So I make it 105 to go, but both players end up tossing their hands in the muck, and we keep this momentum going. Next hand up, we get involved in a local famous $15 bomb pot. 7 people decided to join the party, and we look down at pocket sixes. With 105 already in the middle, we're off to a flop of 8-3-3 rainbow, giving us second pair. Action checks to me, and I figure this board isn't going to get any better for my hand, so I better try and take it down now. I throw out a value bet of $40, and now a player in middle position goes all in for $80. Folds back to me, and to only have to call $40 more to win a pot of $265, I'm just never folding even though I might only have 2 outs. I put in the chips and roll over my hand like I always do when I'm all in, and we're off to a run out. Turn rolls out the 9 of hearts, and river is the 7 of clubs. Our opponent looks at my hand and surprisingly says we're good after tossing his hand in the muck. Must have had a couple big Broadway cards that wanted to see a complete run out, and it's always nice to win a decent sized bomb pot with just a middling pair. I'm about an hour into the session and up over $500, so looking to keep things rolling. Just a few orbits later, a player in early position limps, and I look down at the Cowboys, pocket kings. I make it $20 to go and get called by the player to my left, small blind, and big blind, increasing this pot to $80. Going 4 ways to a flop of 6-5-4 with 2 clubs, giving us the overpair on a super connected board. Both blinds check it over to me, and I could start off with a bet, but I wanted to disguise my hand and use some pot control on a board that definitely crushes our opponent's pre-flop calling ranges. Player to my left doesn't check it back, but instead throws out a bet of $35. Folds to me. I think it's best to call and see what develops in this spot. So I call, increasing this pot to $150, and the turn rolls out the ace of clubs, downgrading our pair, but giving us the nut flush draw. I check, now he decides to check it back. I figured he would still bet with his 2 pairs, straights, and sets, so I'm basically putting him on a hand like pocket 9s or pocket 10s. Off to a river, and it pairs the board in the ace of diamonds, which I was a super big fan of since I'm putting him on a worse pair than mine. I don't think he could face too much heat, so I throw out a value bet of $50, and he basically snap calls. I roll over my hand, he shows pocket queens, which I was shocked to see. Would have loved if he put in a 3-bet pre-flop, because I wouldn't have been worried about this low connecting board in a 3-bet pot, but as you guys know, I'm never going to complain when money is pushed in my direction. For this next one, action folds to the cutoff, who opens to $15. I'm next to act on the button and look down at ace-queen offsuit. Against a late position open, this is a slam dunk 3-bet. Since he's short stacked, I don't need to make it too big and want to keep his entire range in there since I have ultimate position. So I make it $35 to go. When action folds back to him, he puts in the extra $20. Off to a flop heads up with $70 in the middle of ace-8-3 rainbow, giving us top pair second best kicker. Our opponent decides to lead out for $25. Since this board is super dry with 0 draws, I decide to just flat to 25, not wanting to scare him away with his airball bluffs or worse aces. With 120 in the pot, the turn rolls out the deuce of clubs, and now he slows down and checks. He only has about 140 left in his stack, and I want to string him along with all his weak aces, so instead of going all in, I throw out a super small bet of $35, but he ends up folding. Pretty sure he had complete air and tried to use the ace as a bluff on the flop. We ended up picking up some solid hands that we couldn't do anything with. Make sure you stay for day 2 because shit gets crazy. With that being said, let's get to the outro. There's not much better in poker than when your draws hit and your overpairs hold up. In for the original 500 and out for 1079 for a solid $579 win to start the week. Day 2 is one of the wildest sessions of the year, so buckle up. In our first hand of the day, we get involved in another local famous $15 bomb pot. 6 people decided to join the party, and we looked down at my least favorite Broadway hand in poker, King Jack offsuit. With $90 in the middle, we're off to a flop of Queen Jack 8 with 2 diamonds, giving us middle pair on a super connected board. Under the Gun starts off with a bet of $25 and action folds to me. In all honesty, if he was to bet anything over half pot, I would have snap folded since he's leading into 5 other people, so I would assume he's super strong. But for this price, I think it's possible I have the best hand. So I call, increasing this pot to 140, and everyone else gets out of the way. Off to a turn which rolls out the King of Hearts, giving us 2 pair and putting 2 flush draws on the board. He now starts off with a check, and I figured all his 2 pairs, sets, and straights would continue betting, so I'm pretty much putting him on either a flush draw or a pair plus straight draw. No point in checking back given that range, so I make it $65 to go, but he folds without much thought and we scoop in a solid pot on the literal first hand of the day. Over the next few orbits, we got a little frisky with some playable hands, but ended up being down around $30 before our next dealer change, which means one thing: another local famous $15 bomb pot. 7 people decided to join the party this time. We got dealt the hideous Queen 6 offsuit. With 105 in the pot, flop rolls out King 6 rainbow, giving us second pair. Checks to me, and it's damn near impossible for my hand to get much better, so I throw out a c-bet of $35, hoping to just take it down if possible, and that's exactly what happens because everyone else tosses their hands in the muck. Super pumped to win that pot with such a shitty hand, and just like that, we're 2 for 2 in bomb pots, which is super hard to do. Believe it or not, but once again we went an entire dealer change without anything significant happening, so that just means one thing: we're back for another local famous $15 bomb pot. Only 6 people decided to join the party, and we looked down at 6-5 offsuit. Pretty good hand for a bomb pot, so with $90 in the pot, we're off to a flop of 8-4-3 with 2 diamonds, giving us an open-ended straight draw. I start off with a check. Action gets checked to the cutoff, who throws out a bet of $40. Button calls, and I see 0 point in raising in this spot, so I call as well. This brings early position along for the ride, so pots increase to 250, and the turn rolls out the best card in the deck in the deuce of spades, giving us the nut straight and putting 2 flush draws on the board. Never gonna check in this spot because this board is as connected as it gets, so it would be a nightmare if it gets checked through. So I lead out for 165, and action folds all the way to the button, who puts in the call, increasing this pot to $580. In order to make a wise decision on the river, I have to think of the range he'd show up in the spot with. I think all his 2 pairs, sets, and massive overpairs would have raised the cutoff on the flop, so it's safe to say we could eliminate those. At this point, I'm basically putting him on a flush draw and not much else. Off to a river, hoping for a non-spade or diamond, and we get what the doctor ordered when it rolls out the deuce of clubs, pairing the board. Not worried that I'm ever beat given the action, so now my only decision is to check or bet, and for how much. I think checking is perfectly fine to try and let him bluff his missed flush draws, but I wanted to experiment with a super small bet that would hopefully lead him to spazzing. So I throw out a bet of $40, and our opponent goes deep in the tank. I was expecting him to either fold or raise, but surprisingly he ends up putting in the call after almost a minute of tanking. He said for that price he had to see it, despite only having ace high, so I think we got max value. I decided to color up a rack of $5 red chips and turn them into $25 green ones, which is always one of my favorite things to do in poker. If you thought things were slowing down now, you'd be wrong, because the action is about to get even crazier. For this hand, I'm in early position and look down at pocket 5s. Sometimes I'd limp with them, but I figure I gotta start raising them up so my range isn't so face up. So I make it $15 to go and get called by 3 players in the field. Off to a flop 4 ways of 9-8-5 with 2 hearts, giving us bottom set on a super connected board. With $60 in the pot, I decided to size up and throw out a value bet of $50 since there's a ton of draws to get value from that I also need protection against. Action folds all the way to the big blind who puts in the call, increasing this pot to 160. Off to a turn, and it rolls out the queen of clubs, now putting 2 flush draws on the board and bringing in jack 10 for the straight. He checks, and I decide to keep the aggression going and throw out another value bet of 110. He wastes no time before calling, so I think I could take jack 10 out of his range since I'm 100% convinced he would have put in a raise with it. So I'm basically putting him on any flush draw or hands like ace 9, 10 9, or queen 10 and not much else. Keeping that in mind, we're off to a river and it rolls out a complete blank in the 3 of spades. He checks for a 3rd time, and with $380 in the pot, his missed flush draws aren't going to call any size bet, so I want to bet an amount that makes it look like I missed a flush draw myself and all his 9x and queen x hands can call. So I settle on a bet of $250, and without much thought, our opponent slides in the chips, bloating up this pot to $880. I roll over my hand, and it's good after our opponent tosses his in the muck. After scooping in a few small pots, we're up over 4 figures on the day and get involved in our 4th bomb pot. We're currently 3 for 3 in winning these, so let's try to keep this streak going. Every single person on the table decided to join the party, so we're going 9 ways to a flop and get dealt ace 7 offsuit. With 135 in the middle, the flop rolls out ace 4-3 rainbow, giving us top pair. Action gets checked to me on the button, and since everyone checked, I'm feeling pretty good we have the best hand. When that's the case, it's time to bet for value. I throw out a bet of $45 and get called by a player in early position and the hijack. Off to a turn 3 ways and it rolls out the 6 of hearts. Checks to me again, and since I had 2 callers, it's possible I'm outkicked, so I think it's best to check back for pot control and see what develops. Off to a river, and it's one of the worst cards in the deck, and the deuce of spades downgrading our top pair into the worst ace possible since ace deuce through ace 6 all have us beat now. Early position goes all in for just $16, hijack calls, and even though I'm most likely beat, I don't ever see how I could fold top pair for $16 to win a pot of 318, so I put in the side call, and as expected, we're beat. Early position rolls over pocket 5s for the straight, and hijack shows ace queen offsuit. Despite flopping top pair, in the end we turned out to be in last place, and I've officially lost my first bomb pot of the day. After losing the bomb pot, we at least got some of it back by flopping top pair with both ace 10 of diamonds and ace king offsuit for one of my favorite hands of the video. The player in middle position who leans on the tighter side open raises to $15. Folds me in the hijack, and I look down at ace 3 of spades. When I'm this deep against looser players, I like using this hand as a 3-bet to play a pot heads up in position, but against tighter opening ranges, I like calling, and I'm perfectly fine if a hand that can make the nut flush goes in a super multi-way pot. So I call, and surprisingly everyone else gets out of the way. Going heads up to a flop of queen 6 deuce with 2 spades giving us the nut flush draw. Surprisingly, our opponent starts off with the check, and I think we have the green light to start a semi-bluff with. I throw out a bet of $25, and without much thought, he quickly puts in the call. I wasn't expecting him to fold just yet, but since he didn't see bet on the flop with a flush draw available, I think we could take all his queen x hands, pocket kings, and pocket aces off the table. So he probably has an underpair to the queen, or 2 Broadway cards like ace jack or ace king. Keeping that in mind, we're off to a turn which rolls out the ace of hearts, giving us top pair to go along with our flush draw. He checks again, and now we have a decision. Bet or check it back. If we look back at the range I put him on, I think betting would be the worst play. He either has an underpair to the queen that we have crushed and won't call a bet, or he has us in horrible shape with a better ace. Given that, I decide to check it back and see a free river, which rolls out the jack of spades giving us the nut flush. He now leads out for $25 And given the action, I'm basically putting him on ace, king, or ace, jack, and not much else. Don't think I could go too crazy since my hand looks a lot like a flush, but I still think he's calling a raise. So I make it $120 to go, and he quickly puts in the call. I roll over my hand, obviously knowing I'm good, and he shows the jackasses, pocket jacks for a rivered set. By checking back the turn, we were able to get close to max value because he obviously would have folded to any bet. Pretty happy with how I played this hand and thought it through, and just like that, we keep stacking up chips. We colored up once more and played for a bit longer, but couldn't get anything going, so let's get to the outro.
Poker's always fun when you get hit by the deck and you don't make any mistakes. In for the original 500, and out for 1923 for our biggest win of the year of $1,423.
As for this week in poker, we simply destroyed the game. It obviously helped we got hit by the deck, but I'm just glad I made minimal mistakes and made solid reads. We played a total of 5 hours even and profited $2,002 for an insane hourly win rate of $400.40. These weeks don't happen very often, so I'll definitely not take it for granted and enjoy it to the fullest. Our 1-2 stats didn't change since we only played 1-3 this week, but like I said earlier, I'm pretty happy where they sit. As for 1-3, our stats took a massive jump. We've now played 52 hours and 50 minutes and profited $2,272 for an hourly win rate of $43 even. As happy as I am with those numbers, they could easily go in the other direction just as fast, so it's important to stay humble and keep playing my game. Combining all our stats, I've played a total of 116 hours and 30 minutes of live poker and profited $4,198 for an hourly win rate of $36.03. I'm officially at the halfway point of 2025, and I'm happy where these numbers stand. I felt like I've showed minimal tilt, despite having some really bad run of cards, and haven't punted off too much money, and I think the results speak for themselves. Excited to see what the second half of 2025 has in store. Thanks for watching, and as always, I hope you guys run good at the tables, and I'd appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button to help me reach my year-end goal of 20,000 subscribers.